All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Fruits Basket, Season 1, Episode 4.
New girl, looking
person.
for Kyo.
All
right.
But we also had a little bit of a tease of the developments between not just Kyo and Yuki, but bringing, Toru into this situation where she can maybe bring about a little bit of reconciliation between the two.
Maybe.
And
Even if it doesn't look the way she imagined.
Yeah. Even if it doesn't look the way she imagined, there is an aspect of where their kind of rivalry or just kind of awkward, tenuous, fight kind of struggles need to be brought up to the surface in a way that has healthy resolution.
Indeed.
Beyond just the bringing it up, because that's something they do just fine on their own.
Oh, they bring it up plenty.
It's just about a question of what does that actually mean? Does that actually do anything for the long term, or is that just a way that they're showing, hey, we still don't like each other?
And, while it's possible that they will never properly get along, maybe it'll be helped if they each realize that sometimes the rice ball goodies on the inside are on your back.
Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. All right, Kagura the Boar.
Oh, boy.
I would say just to briefly, guys, all just to clarify what's going on here. Jacob and I are not typically big fans of the yandere type characters, just specifically.
Well,
and it's rough that this is the case here, but this is a character archetype that has to take a while to grow on us because it's one that's being introduced so repetitively in the episode that we are needing a little bit more of what makes her not just that.
Yeah, it's and it's not just for me. It's not just the yandere thing. It's that when, if yanderes are acknowledged as they're kind of crazy, then it's like, okay, you have a character in the show that's kind of crazy, right?
Right.
But if they're kind of crazy and everyone basically treats them like they're normal, then that's the aspect of this where this is accepted as an anime trope, right?
So we don't actually give expectations as to why the characters are accepting it as normal. But I would say there's precedent for it because
I think we're thinking along the same lines.
Yeah, Yuki and Kyo fight so much and tear apart the house.
Exactly,
and yet Kyo is totally allowed to be here.
Yeah, it's
not that it's a thing of where it's entirely Yuki or Kyo's fault. It's that it's like, hey, stop doing that. You guys have to repair the stuff if you do.
There's the elements of basically that the characters have the Zodiac, the different whatever their animal is in the Zodiac is kind of like a manifestation of some extreme aspect of their personality, and that a lot of the show and why Toru exists and is the main character is because it's about her reaching people past all their dysfunction, basically.
Well, not just their dysfunction, but the things that they put up that's not who they are.
Exactly, to really get at the true person. Hence, when she embraces them, right? It's not a kiss or something like that. Then their true nature is revealed. Although there's apparently some kind of other true form for Kyo, which is interesting.
That is really interesting,
So in the case of Kagura, she is the boar. She is the pig, right?
Rushes in brashly.
Yep, charges into things and things like that, and has no regard for what Kyo wants, right? Yeah, because that's her.
It's about what she wants. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Now that means there's room for growth, and okay.
And all the characters have this kind of dysfunction in an extreme degree. Yuki's is one where he has little to no empathy for Kyo.
Right.
In a way that is really cold, actually.
Yep.
Kyo has little to no self-awareness or humility with regards to the fact that he is, causing a lot of these problems with how short-fused he is.
Right. And yet I would say that even with Kyo, it's something where, as far as which one seems to be the most functioning to me, weirdly enough, I would say it's Kyo. Because
no, it's just Kyo's gotten the most character focus, I think.
Sure, that's probably what it is. But
all the conflicts revolve around him.
Yes, because he does. he is an easy character to focus on because he's
Yes.
very upfront and
Yes.
things like that. But one of the other things, and because the
Shigure is definitely the most functional.
well, okay, yes, but
He is a member of the Zodiac.
Well, right, but he's the adult of the
I know,
of the show. But yeah,
he is the most functioning of all the people here.
Definitely, because
Even more than Toru in some
right?
ways.
Because how could you find fault with a dog? Oh no, yeah, Toru is super dysfunctional, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
And that was put on display here. The fact that she was like, "Wow, I want to be more like you, Kagura." It's like, okay.
Remember, Jacob.
No.
Separate the trope with
No,
what
totally.
she was trying to say.
No, yeah, exactly. But it's elements, especially since we know that Toru's family situation is not the best. That, of course, when she sees love that is unabashedly proclaimed again and again,
Right.
that's something that she probably wishes she had more of because her mom's gone and her grandpa, not exactly great.
Nope.
You know.
And there's something that they kind of teased at the end of the episode with regards to the grandpa, either the one
saying,
calling
like, you can
her
come
or
home
someone
again or
calling
something.
about
Right.
with like as the grandpa.
But one of the other things I want to point out that I thought of after the episode that might not necessarily address the issue that I had of everyone basically treating Kyo like shit for all the things that Kagura did. Kyo is the cat. He's the one that's technically kind of the outcast and ostracized from the Zodiac.
Right.
So it does kind of make sense that there would be elements of that being displayed by the characters.
Right.
So okay, that's kind of how I justify it in my mind.
Yeah. I also think for some level, one of the things that is relatively awkward in this dynamic that is something that we just kind of accept because we have to have the story continue in this setting is that Kyo doesn't have to be here.
That's true.
But he wants to be here because he doesn't want to be in the Soma family's like proper whatever.
Or no, he does. Yuki doesn't.
Yuki
wants to get away from it.
Yuki wants to get away from it. Kyo
wants to get into it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
Right.
for clarifying that. But this girl finding him here after all this time shows that he's kind of tired of her, like specifically.
Oh yeah.
But with regards to actually like trying to figure out a way to end this whole thing here, he's realizing that he can't actually do that. Like, he can give her all the rejection and all the, I don't like you, I'm not interested in you.
Yeah.
She doesn't care.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really interesting about feelings and understanding another person is that you don't control their feelings.
Right.
In fact, you don't control them at all. Now, this is where a lot of people will put personal responsibility on others
because of how they made them feel.
because how they made them feel.
Right, and in this case, it's easy to notice that when it's in the negative, but when it's in the positive, yeah, that can also be a problem.
Right. So in this case here, I think that Kyo can get a lot of peace out of this by just saying, I am going to let her feel however she wants to feel. That's her decision. But I am not going to then necessarily like spend time with her or, engage in this. And I think it would be very easy for him to basically be like, this is kind of a meta thing, but to be like, well, if you're here, then I can't be here. You're actively taking away my peace and sanity.
He doesn't just go to his room. He leaves the building and goes onto the roof.
Yeah. And that's I'd say a first step in that regard. And thus he ends up getting into some really cool interactions with Toru as she kind of makes her way around to all the people there to get some more understanding about who they are, which is basically what the show seems to be about with its formula thus far. Toru understands how to connect with people and understand them by reaching them in their specific aspect of who they are outside of the Zodiac and outside of their extreme reactionary type personalities. And then there's Shigure, who is just...
I'm doggo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a dog in this fight.
Nope. Doesn't have a bone to pick.
Doesn't have a bone to pick. I love Shigure.
Shigure is wonderful.
There's so many little moments where I'm like... Wait, they just imply... No, just he's such a ball of something. I don't know. But the Kyo Kagura awkward dynamic as a comedy angle got got tread upon a bit too much this episode.
Which is kind of what Kagura does.
Which is what Kagura does, yeah.
Like, she has no regard for us, the audience, in the same way that she has no regard for Kyo.
Yeah.
You know?
So her overcoming in some ways, the indifference that she has towards Kyo in that regard, actually, and that Kyo has been rejecting her all this time, is in some ways escalated, or in some ways is unable to be escalated because of his indifference towards her. So they've got this eternal cycle that they'll keep going on until they learn to accept that gap. And I would say, actually, I'm in a bit of, weirdly enough, I'm in a bit of Kagura's court here, that if she can take a step back and acknowledge the fact that there's a gap there that she's eternally creating within this cycle because she is actually indifferent towards his feelings.
Yep.
She'll see that what he has towards her, what she has towards him, what he has towards her, can't speak right now, is actually a form of the same indifference. He is not that actively, like, trying to, like, get rid of her once she shows up. And this is a meta form of analysis here because he can't actually leave the episode's plot.
Sure, and you know, when he tries to get her to leave, she'll kick his ass and, you know, throw him through a wall.
But I don't think he actually tried to get her to leave. He kind of did the... So, I'm
he did the cat thing of sort of circling around the thing and swatting at it.
Yeah,
but
exactly. I want to equate this to kind of like a kid's game here.
Okay.
When you're playing tag as kids, there's a point at which you hit the boundaries of the zone you're playing tag in, and the person is no longer chasing you because you're not nearby. Eventually, you get bored because the person chasing you isn't providing you any enjoyment. So what do? Do you just sit in the very far corner and be like, well, I'll wait for them to show up and I'll just eat my snacks, play whatever, just kind of do whatever? Or do you kind of try to pretend that everything has maintained a little bit of equilibrium, and you go into another area and you kind of just sit there and be like, oh, this is a little bit nicer. But no, there's still a person out there that's chasing you. Eventually, they're going to find you. Okay. So
that Kyo likes to be, like, bothered by her?
No, I don't think he likes to be bothered by her. But in the same way that Toru could tried to reach to Kyo, saying it's nice to have someone that worries about you and cares about you, even if it's in this extreme manner. Just having someone like that is nice. I think that Kyo, in a weird way, might prefer to have that with, someone like Yuki.
Okay.
Versus, it's the idea of I keep trying to fight, Yuki over and over and over again, even though I know I'm not going to.
Gotcha.
Win
well,
here.
Okay, sure. So at its core, while it's done in a very dysfunctional way from the characters, right? Because they're flawed. It's basically trying to balance emotional needs, right?
Yes.
And because Kagura doesn't understand that she isn't actually interested in what Kyo wants at all.
And by her actions, she is definitely not.
Right, by her actions, she definitely is not.
No.
But it's that she has an emotional need
herself
that she needs to be filled, right? And that's normal. That's not inherently wrong, right?
The way you go about
the way you go about it, the way you
interact with other people,
right? The way she kind of stomps all over Kyo. That's the problem, right?
That's the problem.
But her acknowledging that having that need is totally fine. That's where I think she could grow because I think the thing that bothers me the most about her, as opposed to like this shtick of being like totally obsessed with Kyo, because that could be a totally fun shtick, right? And the misadventures and the complications and all the kerfuffles and whatnot that could come out as a result of that.
Sure.
Is that she disregards Kyo's wants and things like that. If it was something where she was like super like fawning over him and like making the giant dinner and all that stuff and doing these things where she is kind of bumbling her way through it, I probably wouldn't have a problem with it, And it's more of just when it's I want to make you happy. Do you though?
No, you want to make yourself happy,
right?
And just acknowledging that just because you have love, feelings, or desire towards a person, they don't owe you anything.
Right.
And this is probably the thing that I think is a really cool sub-lesson within an episode like this, is that the other person is not responsible for the way you feel about them.
Yep.
Now, they are responsible for their actions towards you.
Totally.
But that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
The fact that you were able to play with him when he was, sort of lonely as a kid, that's awesome.
That's really
Way
sweet.
to go.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Good for you. That's
yeah. That's pretty much where it begins and ends, right?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate and the fact that your emotional needs are met to such a degree by being around him. That's awesome in that, and that does suck that he gets absolutely nothing, or in fact gets a negative out of being around you.
Yeah. But that might be more cyclical than you think, Kagura.
Yeah.
I really don't think he actually hates you that much. That's why I wanted to bring up the meta-analysis of the fact that if he hated her that much, the second she showed up and kicked his ass, basically, he'd be like, all right, guys, I'm dipping. I'm out.
Yep, and that was kind of what I wanted him to do for the majority of the episode.
But in a meta way...
He can't.
He can't because of the plot of the show.
Yeah.
And that's something.
Although he did do that for 4 months.
No.
But that wasn't because
that's
of her.
different. That is different. Let's remember where we're at right now.
Yep.
In this episode, he cannot leave the episode.
Right.
But I think because the show is probably going to go more in depth into the stuff like that, the reason why he didn't leave is because he actually doesn't hate her that much.
Right.
He, if anything, is maybe a bit terrified of the fact that she will be so unrelenting in her love, quote unquote, for him,
right,
that he won't be able to fight back eventually. And that is something that I think is a little bit terrifying, is that when you break down what love is sometimes, some people get actually a bit worn down defenses wise. Where it's such an unrelenting pursuit. Now the method is important. The way you do it is important. But the idea that a lot of people will just spend so much time with a person, and that person could secretly love them the whole time.
Yeah.
That eventually that person falls in love, and then the other person who's like, yes, I'm so happy.
I was hoping and trying to make this happen.
In
for
another
years,
show, in another show, Bunny Girl Senpai, there's an instance where a character does something like that, where they keep putting themselves in situations around a character, thinking that, well, eventually, we could have something here that would be really special. Now, it's not necessarily guaranteed, but one of the things that I would not put it past Kagura is to be so dogged, if you will, in her resilience, that eventually something does change. Now, I don't think that's going to happen.
I personally do not want that to happen.
No, I don't want it to happen either. In fact, in a lot of ways, I feel like the more and more we get into this show, the more and more I don't feel like it's a romance show.
Oh, yeah?
The more and more I feel like, in some ways, the stuff that what's going on with Soma and Kyo and Toru feels like the kind of thing of where they could eventually go into some kind of small love triangle kind of stuff. But more so about how Toru connects with them and resolves the conflict.
Right, and then how the conflict within Toru is also resolved.
Right, and
dealing
I think
with
that's
stuff from her family and past.
Yeah, and I think that'll
that.
be because of the feedback loop with the eventual cast that
the whole
we'll
is
have.
greater than the sum of its parts. That kind of a thing. Yeah.
There was a couple things that were hinted at here.
True form and grandpa.
Well, no, there was another thing too.
Another thing.
That's that Shigure was like, no, I understand. I get jealous sometimes too. When Kagura left, there was a point where Shigure had this little thing of, no, you're not the only one. And the way he said that felt like he was trying to be almost quiet because someone else in the house might hear him. And I don't think that's because he necessarily has some jealousy towards someone else in the house.
Right.
Maybe he's quite impressed with the way Toru's energy is, and he does kind of love her in some way, or he's kind of crushed on her a little bit. But I get the feeling that Shigure is one of those people that's just a little bit older, not a lot older, because he's probably old where he's like 18 or 19, But
old by young adult standards, all that.
I'm 19, I'm so old. But
have my own house and all that.
What I could see it is that, remember, Shigure, this is his place. This is his kind of place of isolation and peace.
He is a lonely dog.
And he is a lonely dog.
If not for them, he would have no one. And a dog without someone to, to be around and stuff.
And
that sounds pretty bad.
And I think that what makes him happy is seeing this lively chaos around him. Even if it's a bit dysfunctional, even if it's something where his house keeps breaking and stuff, he's like, hey, well, they keep fixing it because they care about being able to be here, and that's the deal.
Because Kyo lets us put upon him.
Right. And I think that's his dog, if you will, in this whole thing.
Okay,
There is something else out there, probably with the rest of the Soma clan, where there might be some jealousy or some unrequited love or something else out there. But I really think that's important to acknowledge because, well, we question why Kagura is tolerated. And I think it's because Shigure actually would prefer to have total chaos than no chaos.
Sure. Maybe if we look at the perspective of taking care of Yuki, we know that Yuki doesn't do well in isolation. In fact, the fact that he, fights with Kyo and things like that kind of helps him a bit from what I've gathered. So maybe it's that thing of my person is Yuki, and I'm giving him a place to stay so that he can try and figure things out separate from the Soma family. Oh, and more people here, that just means more energy. And energy is good.
And in some ways, if they're members of the Soma family that slowly trickle their way over here, he's like, well, he's going to need to deal with them eventually.
That's true.
So why not have a nice little one-by-one,
right,
anime-style introduction of the characters to bring it up there? Sure, why not?
Yep.
But, yeah, the grandpa.
Yeah,
because I don't think we have really any way of figuring out what the true form thing is really about.
No, not really.
But the grandpa thing feels a little bit like of a dual potential thing here.
So here's something.
Was it the grandpa calling, do you think?
I believe so.
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
So with the whole situation with the grandpa, I kind of want to write him off as just an asshole, right? However, there is a possibility that it's not, because Toru's big issue, from what I've seen so far, is that she, as much as she sees, she's also kind of blind, and
a naivete that is tempered with a bit of a hard life that brought her here.
Exactly. There are elements of the naivete that can be helpful for her and for people around her and things like that, but there's other situations I can see where it would totally cause issues. Like, for instance, with the grandpa doing the renovations, and then he's like, oh, why don't you go stay at a friend's house? That could be a totally sincere, earnest thing of like, it's gonna be all crazy here. Go hang out with a friend, right? And maybe then, because she's so empathetic, she sees maybe the situations where she caused trouble for her grandpa, right?
And just blames herself.
And blames herself for it, and then it's like, okay, well, my friends, I don't want to be a burden on them either, so she doesn't communicate, and she goes and lives on her own. That's something where, as difficult as it would be, any of her friends would be like, yeah, come stay with us. We don't want you to be homeless, right? But she didn't. So the grandpa calling could be a, hey, thanks for bearing with it. I know it was rough, but, and hope you had fun with your friends and everything, but it's all good to come back now. Or it could be the thing of the, all right, it's convenient again to have you around.
Right.
And I suppose your family and stuff, so come back and live with me because that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah. This is a thing that I think is important to kind of keep in the context of our thoughts here, because I think you're right on the money with this, is that the 3 books that it looks like she was checking out from the library or purchasing or what have you, we have stuff for the vegetable gardens, stuff for the martial artist stuff, and then just a cooking book, which that's all 3 of the boys. You have martial arts for Kyo, you have the vegetable garden for Yuki, and then you have actual just cooking stuff in general for Shigure.
Yeah.
So you got to feed your dog. You got to tend to the
the person whose home it is, appreciates cooking, right? Of course,
the secret base for the rats.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the combat training for the dexterous cat. So she drops the books when receiving the message from her grandpa.
Yeah,
which is, I think, just symbolic that she's fearing she's going to lose them as family, because then she says, I knew my living situation was temporary.
Yep.
But I was fooling myself into thinking that we could be family. So, what does that mean? housing situation does not equate to home or family.
Nope.
It just means your place of residence where you survive and you don't get rained on when it's stormy.
Exactly.
Hopefully. Now, if she has to move out, I would say that one of the first immediate cool things with that is it forces all the other characters to have to adapt to Toru not being there.
Yep.
But it also does is it makes it then as a thing of where when Toru goes back to her grandpa, she can then choose of her own accord whether she wants to stay with him.
Exactly. Figure out what it is she really wants. Yeah. And
she might already know.
She might,
right?
yeah, and it seems like she does because she's like, oh, I didn't want to go back. The other thing, and this is this is going out on a limb a little bit.
Okay.
But given the fact that she was like, oh, I fooled myself into thinking that we could be family, what that makes me think is that there is her family emotional need is not being met. Now, that could be for a variety of different reasons. We know her mom's gone, so that's a big one already, right? And I could totally see it being something where as a result of that, she wants as much family as she can get, right? She sees her two friends at school as family, right? You know, she sees the Soma, clan and the people from there that she's met here. She sees them as family.
Right.
But there's the possibility that it's also because she doesn't see her grandpa as family.
Oh.
And I don't think that's something that Toru would ever admit to herself, because it's the, oh no, I must see the good in everyone, right? Because in this situation here, right, she saw the good in Kagura, right, and kind of ignored all the negative side effects of it, right? Of a love that wasn't truly looking out for the best interests and the wants and needs and desires of the other person. Now we have another situation where it doesn't have to be, but it's possible that we have a figure whose love is not looking out for the wants, needs, and desires of the person who they profess to love, right? And there is a very strong possibility that she would not actually allow herself to put distance between herself and her grandpa because she's like, oh, but my grandpa's my grandpa. He must love me and things like that, right?
Sure.
And then she's not actually choosing to do what she really wants, right? It's then shoulds and living for other people and all that bad stuff. So, yeah, I'm curious to see where the next episode goes, because the phone call is something that's dramatic from the standpoint of the status quo for the show, but it doesn't necessarily tell us how things are going to be handled.
Right. Yeah, I would say that something will have to be choice-wise a bit forced upon her, but as to how she'll choose to make this kind of
How to respond to that?
I think that right now we've already kind of got a rhythm for how the show will continue, like plot-wise. We're going to have more and more people come over to Shigure's place. And
right, she's not just going to leave their house for good.
Them.
Yeah,
exactly. But we had the hat show up again. The hat that was given to her by the person with the shadowy shadow over their face.
Yep.
It kind of looked like Yuki, but also isn't necessarily anyone that we know. It could be
right. But it definitely
anyone.
wasn't like a parent. Like they looked a little bit older than her, but not much older. Like they were still a kid in the flashback bit we saw.
Yeah, in the flashback bit we saw, it's something that looked like a peer of hers that was a little bit taller, if anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Toru isn't exactly large.
Yeah, exactly. And, it doesn't take, much for someone to be, 4 inches taller than her, probably, because, Soma and Kyo, for instance, are definitely taller than her.
Right.
But I am very interested in seeing how this hat ties into what her definition of family is. Because one of the things that we have in this kind of, bit of dialogue or internal monologue here is that there was a but. There was a contrast. There was an idea of the books being the attachment to the things that then would make them family. She drops them, but, drop. Somehow being this chaotic sequence of events, I've been fooled. Fooled meaning I've latched onto something more than maybe I should have. I've been fooling myself into thinking we could be family. And then it focuses on the hat, basically showing a connection to family as whatever that concept means to her with this hat.
Yeah,
and
because she doesn't wear it, so the fact that she keeps keeping it around, that's a big deal.
It is an emotional keepsake of hers tied to her backstory in some way.
And it's not in the ways that we would have immediately assumed. Like, I would think that this might be something where it's, you know, it would have been the last thing that her mother gave her before she died, or it was the only thing that she has to remember her father, you know, like something like that, right?
Right.
But it doesn't seem to be any of those things. So
I have had like multiple like random things jump through my head as to what it's there for, but I think it's more just something that we're getting slight, just kind of slow style foreshadowing built up to, and it's not going to be some great mystery. It's just going to be, that's what it was.
When do they want to get into it?
Yeah. And it gives me that, you know, Nami straw hat kind of put it on her head kind of thing. So someone at some point basically was family to her in a way that she's never maybe felt before.
Right.
And it really changed or cemented some aspects of who she is.
There's
an identity. Oh, sorry, just one little thing. There is an identity focus to this story.
Yes.
That is really fascinating. Like I have a personal fascination with it because it's based around the idea of identity layers and misdirection that is put out to protect oneself from the outside world, and I'm excited to see from our omniscient perspective where Toru's is. Like, what are the things that she's keeping back from everyone here?
Sure.
Because they're not necessarily family yet.
Right. Yeah.
Or they're not that close to her yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, we'll have to see what that is, and that'll be really awesome. The only random theory that I have, and this doesn't really have any basis necessarily, but is that the hat is one of those, like, she actually secretly already knew one of the like Yuki or something like that from way back when, you know, like when he was happier or something. But yeah, other than that, I have no idea.
I think the person in the flashback could have totally been Yuki. It just fits in that regard. And
yep.
Yeah.
But we will see.
We will see. So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.